My name is Alara Sinclair. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years being the cleanup crew for the men in my life. First, it was my father's embezzlement scandal. Then, my fiance's gambling debts. Then, my boss's lawsuit. All swept under the rug. By me. Quietly, professionally, efficiently. I was the one who stayed calm when everyone else detonated. The dependable one. The fixer. The unburnable one. Until I woke up one morning to find my own nudes sent to the entire board of directors. Fake ones. Let me rewind. 2 weeks before it all burned down, I was on the verge of becoming managing director at Ravenheart Capital. The youngest ever. My numbers were spotless. My client retention was unmatched. I was the only black woman in the senior division, and I'd worked twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. But there was one thing I hadn't accounted for. Noah. Noah Elridge. My fiancé. My fucking blind spot. He played supportive like it was second nature. Late night dinners after meetings, encouraging words on sticky notes. He even helped me rehearse my promotion pitch in our living room, barefoot and grinning like he was proud of me. I thought he loved me. Until the morning my phone buzzed with a flood of missed calls from HR, and a single email with the subject line, "Inappropriate content, urgent response needed." Inside were 6 screenshots. Me, naked, on my knees, from angles I didn't recognize, in rooms I'd never been in. Doctored. But convincing. By 9 a.m., I was on suspension. By 3 p.m., my name was trending. And by 5 p.m., Noah was gone. He left a note. "I can't deal with this. I need space. Please don't call." The man who helped build my future had just hit detonate and walked away from the blast. And it gets worse, because the person I was accused of sending the images to was my boss, Sebastian Vale. My boss and Noah's half-brother. I found out about the family connection by accident. After 3 days of hiding in my apartment, I got a knock at the door from my sister Kira. She came armed with tequila and spite. "You've been sleeping with your boss?" she asked before even sitting down. "No, I've barely even spoken to Sebastian outside of meetings." She raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you all over Reddit in a thread called Finance Whore Fucks for Promotion?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew. And she was pissed. At me. At men. At the world. And in that moment, something cracked. A week later, I was presumed dead. Car crash. Fiery. Closed casket. Body too damaged for public viewing. That's what the police report said. That's what the insurance paid for. That's what everyone believed. Except Kira. She was the only one who knew the truth. That the ashes in the urn weren't mine. That I'd spent the last 2 months off-grid in a rented cabin with nothing but burner phones and a VPN. Planning. I sold off what was left of my crypto. Emptied my offshore accounts. Funneled the money through 4 layers of shell corporations. And sent it to Kira. Not under my name. Not in one lump sum. Just little breadcrumbs. Enough to fund something she'd been ranting about since college. A revenge porn site that only targeted men in power. We called it Red Widow. And it worked. One by one, CEOs, senators, judges, and tech bros woke up to find their own indiscretions broadcasted across the dark web, curated, stylized, anonymized for protection, but clear enough to destroy reputations. Kira handled the content. I handled the money. She never asked where the footage came from, but I knew. And that's where this story starts to rot. 3 months into Red Widow's reign, Kira started acting strange, more erratic, flashier. She was partying harder, posting more selfies, wearing jewelry I hadn't authorized. And then I saw them. Photos. With Noah. My fiancé. The man who nuked my life. I wanted to believe it was old, a coincidence, but I knew that tattoo on his wrist. He only got it after the crash, after my funeral, so I did what I do best. I hacked, and what I found ripped the skin off every scar I thought had healed. Kira hadn't just been sleeping with Noah, she had been working with him. From the beginning. My funeral was staged, but my rage, that was real. I thought I was the one pulling strings. I thought I was the spider in the web. Turns out, I was just another daughter dancing for the devil. Because the real puppeteer was our mother. Her name is Miriam Sinclair. She's 64, elegant, sharp, looks like the kind of woman who drinks martinis at 2 p.m. and fires people by handwritten note. But underneath all that silken charm is a strategist more vicious than Wall Street. She never liked Noah. She didn't even pretend to. And she hated Kira's recklessness. But somehow she let them into her house. Let them both survive. When I confronted her, she didn't deny anything. She just poured tea and said, "I've been watching you girls since you were toddlers. You both wanted power. I gave you the stage. The rest was theater." And then she pulled out a flash drive. Every room, every year, every secret. Hidden cameras in our childhood home. Footage of us, as teenagers, as adults, crying, plotting, scheming. She had it all. She built Red Widow before we did. We were just living in the web she spun. And now I'm rewriting the script. Because I may have faked my death once, but this time, someone else won't be waking up. How to build a weapon from memory. I still remember the sound of my mother's voice when she said it. The rest was theater. It echoed long after she left the room, her teacup still steaming. The kind of statement that isn't meant to be argued with. Just absorbed. Like radiation. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the floor of my old bedroom, the one with the pale lavender wallpaper and the ceiling sticker stars. The room I hadn't lived in since I was 17. The room that, apparently, had been filming me for years. I stared at the tiny black dot in the smoke detector and tried to remember every secret I ever whispered in that space. Every breakdown. Every plan. Every phone call I thought was private. And the worst part? I couldn't remember what she had on me, which meant she had the power now. I left the house before sunrise. No note. No goodbye. Just a duffel bag and a burner phone. I didn't trust any of the cars in the Sinclair garage. If Miriam was half as paranoid as I now knew she was, they'd all be bugged. Tracked. Probably even voice recorded. I walked 4 miles to the nearest truck stop, paid a driver $300 to take me out of the city, and used a fake ID to rent a crumbling studio apartment in a nowhere town in upstate New York. Population, less than 1,000. Surveillance, minimal. Internet, barely. It was perfect, because if I was going to dismantle a monster, I needed quiet and time. The first thing I did was rebuild Red Widow's architecture from scratch. Off-grid, untraceable, better. Kira still thought she was running the show, but what she didn't know was that the entire platform now mirrored through a duplicate interface I controlled. Every upload, every access log, every financial transaction, all visible to me. And what I found was worse than I expected. Kira wasn't just targeting men in power anymore. She was taking private commissions. A hedge fund manager who cheated on his wife, a mayor accused of groping an intern, a billionaire's son who ghosted a girl he met on Raya. And she was charging them, not to expose, to protect, blackmail, the very thing Red Widow was built to punish. My sister had turned justice into business. Meanwhile, Noah had gone quiet. No posts, no photos, no sightings. He'd vanished in a way that only someone with resources could. which meant either he was hiding or someone was hiding him. And given what I'd seen on the mirrored servers, I had a sinking feeling who? My mother. Because every time a payout hit Kira's offshore wallet, another transaction hit one of Miriam's shell companies. Clean. Precise. Like clockwork. They were working together. Or worse, Miriam was using Kira as bait, as a tool, as the front-facing firework to distract from the long con she'd been building for years. So I did the only thing left to do. I baited the trap. 3 days later, a new submission appeared on Red Widow. Subject: high-profile asset manager with ties to foreign real estate fraud. Evidence: voicemails, surveillance footage, banking leaks. Target location: Miami. Fee for takedown: waived. Uploader anonymous. It was a lie. There was no fraud. The footage was doctored. The evidence was fabricated. The account was traced back to a burner I left in Miriam's safe. The whole thing was fake. But I knew they wouldn't ignore it. Because Miriam doesn't like loose ends. And she never ignores blood in the water. By the time Kira reached out, the bait had been active for 18 hours. She messaged me from a ghost number. Kira, I know you're alive. We need to talk. I didn't respond. She sent another one. I didn't know what Noah was doing. I swear. That was the tell. I never mentioned Noah. I waited. At 2:40 a.m., someone broke into the Miami Dropbox I set up to catch Red Widow's crew. Facial recognition pinged. Noah. Alive. Holding a crowbar. And he wasn't alone. Behind him, Kira. Behind her, Miriam. So that's when I decided this wouldn't end with an expose. This wouldn't be solved with a leak. This was family. And to kill a family curse, you have to destroy it from the inside. One secret at a time. The goddess trials. There's a saying in finance, if you want to know where the power is, follow the liability. So that's what I did. I pulled up every transaction Kira made in the past 4 months, traced every shell corporation, every holding company, every anonymous crypto wallet that touched $1 of Red Widow's revenue. They all led to one name, Lunara Consulting. Registered in Belize. Technically owned by a foundation that didn't exist until a week after my fake funeral. But the IP address that created it? Miriam's house. I booked a one-way ticket to Zurich under the alias Nyla Hart. 5 hours later, I was on a train slicing through the Alps, a duffel bag at my feet filled with 2 burner phones, 1 encrypted laptop, and a hollowed-out copy of Pride and Prejudice hiding a Glock 26. I wasn't just visiting Europe. I was hunting ghosts. Miriam was smart. She didn't operate from one place. She floated through networks, proxies of proxies. But even the most careful spider has to rest somewhere. And I had a feeling I knew where she spun her web. Zurich's old town, the private bank she used as her anchor. It was discreet, anonymous, the kind of place that didn't list names on the doors, only initials. But I wasn't there to knock. I was there to steal. I posed as a courier. Black cap, signature clipboard, claimed I had legal papers for L. Sinclair. The receptionist hesitated. I leaned in. She told me if I don't deliver it in person, I shouldn't come back to New York. That did the trick. She buzzed me up. And there she was, Miriam. Perfect hair, unbothered, like she hadn't orchestrated a multi-layer web of betrayal that spanned continents. She looked up from her tablet and said calmly, Alara, you're late. I nearly laughed. You knew I'd come. Of course, you always need the last word. I want the footage. Which part? That stopped me. She slid open a drawer. Inside were 3 hard drives. Bedroom, office, bathroom. Pick your poison. I didn't take any. Instead, I sat down. Why Miriam? Why Noah? Why Kira? She sipped her coffee. Because women waste their rage on men. You were always going to destroy something. I simply gave you the tools. That's sick. That's strategic. And then she slid over a folder. Inside, a contract. What is this? The next phase. I want you back in. Controlling Red Widow. Publicly. With my name nowhere on it. You be the goddess. I stay the ghost. I stared at the papers. Neat. Precise. Terrifying. And if I say no, then I release everything. Every whispered secret. Every tear-streaked confession. The world gets all of you, Alara. Not just the curated pain. It wasn't a deal. It was blackmail from my mother. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how much I'd already lost. That night, I returned to my safe house in Vienna and began Phase 3. The Goddess Trials. A series of deepfake exposures on Red Widow. Leaks framed as anonymous. Planted evidence. Photos, video, text. Targets? Not men. Women. One by one, I uploaded fake scandals. Not enough to destroy lives. Just enough to spark chaos. Influencers, CEOs, journalists. Enough for people to start questioning the site's morality. And guess what happened? Kira folded. She posted a live stream from her penthouse, weeping into the camera. Claimed she never meant for things to go this far. Blamed hackers. And just like that, Red Widow fell. But the best part? I'd already sold it. To a privacy rights firm. Silent bid. $14 million in crypto. Locked in before the scandal dropped. Before the value tanked. I funneled every dollar into a trust under my name. My real name. And sent Miriam a single text. Congratulations. You built a goddess, but I burned the temple. When ashes speak. The message Miriam sent back was only one word. Checkmate. But I knew better. Miriam didn't play chess. She played something older. Dirtier. Something where kings were disposable and queens had knives in their smiles. I didn't reply. Instead, I used my new funds to vanish again. This time to Lisbon. A quiet apartment with rusted shutters and thick cement walls. No cameras, no echoes, just silence. But silence doesn't mean peace, because I kept hearing Kira's voice in my head. The live stream, the trembling, the tears. Real or rehearsed, I couldn't tell. So I hacked her phone. Took 30 seconds. She was still messaging Noah. I know she's alive, she's watching. Then let her, she needs to see what she lost. You don't think she'll come back? She won't. She doesn't have it in her. That was the moment I smiled, because they still thought I was mourning, not mobilizing. I started laying traps, not the digital kind, real ones. Flesh and consequence. First, I leaked that Red Widow had a silent co-founder, me, Alara Sinclair, a whistleblower, a survivor. I framed myself as a rogue insider ready to expose everything. The media bit hard. Podcasts, interviews, hashtags. Red Widow revenge trended for 5 days straight. Then came the death threats. Not from strangers, from Kira's burner. If you come for me, I'll burn everything. Which was perfect. Because now I had a reason. I flew back to the States under the alias Simone Darrow. Checked into a boutique hotel in Manhattan. Paid cash. Tipped heavy. I scheduled a fake press conference under Red Widow's old media email. Location, the rooftop of the Mason building, where Kira once threw her 30th birthday party. The invite list? Just 3 people. Kira Sinclair, Noah Elridge, Miriam Sinclair. None of them could resist. Especially not when the subject line said, Public apology and final confession, 8 p.m. sharp. I wore all black. High color. No makeup. I wanted to look like a shadow. 8:02 p.m. They arrived. Kira in leather. Noah in tailored smugness. Miriam in ice. I stood at the edge of the rooftop, city buzzing behind me, holding a simple black USB. You wanted a confession? I said. You're bluffing, Kira spat. You wouldn't destroy your own name. You already did that for me, I said, walking forward. I plugged the USB into the rooftop projector. The screen flickered. Footage played. Not deepfakes. The real files. Raw camera angles. Night vision. Audio. Our childhood bedrooms. Our fights. Our tears. And Miriam. Listening. Watching. Recording. Kira froze. You said those didn't exist anymore, she whispered. Miriam didn't flinch. They always exist. I turned back to Noah. Still think I'm not coming back? He laughed. You can't undo what I did. No, but I can erase you. I handed a small envelope to Kira. Inside were documents, proof of Noah forging contracts, evidence he doctored the fake nudes, bank transfers linked to Red Widow's takedown fund. He used you. I said, You used me, and now you both get to lose. Miriam stepped forward. And what about me? You think this ruins me? No, I said, this unmasks you. That's worse. Then I handed her the flash drive. One copy, do what you want with it. But if you ever come near me again, I won't just leak it. I'll narrate it. I walked off that rooftop with nothing but silence behind me. And for the first time in years, nobody followed. The coronation. You don't walk away from a rooftop like that and expect peace. You walk away expecting war. But the war didn't come. Not right away. There were rumors, whispers in back channels, Reddit threads speculating on who ES really was. But nothing official. No lawsuits. No subpoenas. No sudden black SUVs outside my door. They were licking their wounds. And that meant I had time. Time to build something new. I moved to Montreal, not because it was safe, but because it was quiet. A city that didn't ask questions. I bought a nondescript brownstone under another alias, Ava West. And I did something I hadn't done in years. I applied for a job. Not in finance. Not in tech. Journalism. Investigative. I figured if I'd spent years being everyone else's secret, maybe it was time to tell some of my own. I started under an online publication no one respected. Low readership, clickbait headlines, more ad space than articles. But that was the point. I wrote anonymously at first. Exposés on online exploitation. Digital consent. The politics of revenge porn. Each article sourced with the kind of data only someone like me would have. The stories went viral because people weren't just reading them, they were seeing themselves in them. Victims emailed me. Survivors sent thank yous. And then one day a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. Just 5 words on the inside. They still don't know everything. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Miriam. I burned the letter, but the message stayed. Because she was right. There were still pieces left. Kira had disappeared. Publicly humiliated, she retreated from all platforms, but not entirely. She was living in Berlin now, under the name Celeste Ray. DJing, posting curated reels of healing and rebirth. But one post caught my eye. A small tattoo on her inner wrist. A spider. The same one carved into the jewelry box Miriam gave us as kids, which meant one thing. She was still in the web. I flew to Berlin. No disguise this time. No aliases. Just Alara. I found Kira in a smoky lounge spinning tracks while men twice her age nodded along like they understood bass. I waited until her set ended, then slid into the booth beside her. She didn't flinch. You came all this way to kill me? She asked. No, just to ask why. She laughed. Short. Bitter. Because I was always the echo, never the voice. You were the star, Elle, even when you vanished. So you wanted to become me? She looked at me. I wanted to replace you. But I couldn't. Not even with Noah. He still said your name. That hit harder than I expected. Not because I cared, but because it reminded me he never really saw either of us. Where is she? I asked. You know where? The cabin? She nodded. She never left. She's waiting for you. Said the story isn't finished until the last chapter is written. So I left Berlin, took a night train through Prague, then a flight to Nova Scotia, then a rental car through snow-covered forests until I reached the cabin we grew up visiting each winter. It was exactly the same. Cold, remote, quiet. Miriam was there, sitting in front of a fire, reading The Art of War. She didn't look up when I entered. "Do you feel victorious?" she asked. "No, I feel awake." She nodded. "Then I did my job." "That's not a compliment." "It's not supposed to be." I sat across from her, let the silence stretch. "Why us? Why your daughters?" She turned a page. "Because if I hadn't trained you, the world would have eaten you alive. Now it bows." "You broke us." "No, Alara. I forged you." Her voice didn't shake, and that's when I realized something. She'd never loved us the way we needed. She loved what we could become, what we could win. We were her legacy project, not her children. I left without another word, and when I reached the car, I didn't cry. I just opened my laptop and began typing. My name is Alara Sinclair, and this is how I dismantled a dynasty. The bloodline receipt. They say blood is thicker than water, but no one ever finishes the quote, and the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Which means this: chosen family is stronger than the one you're born into. I never understood that until I stood over my mother's hospital bed. 3 months after the cabin, Miriam collapsed during a keynote at a private tech summit in Tokyo. Stroke. Minor. Not fatal. But the damage was there. She was transferred to a secure rehab facility in Switzerland, the kind that charges 7 figures to never ask questions. I went to see her, not because I cared, but because I had questions, and I wanted to ask them to her face while she could still lie to me. She looked smaller, weaker, still sharp though. "You came to gloat?" she rasped. "No, I came for the vault." She blinked, then a slow smile. "I always knew it would be you. Not Kira, not Noah. You." I didn't say anything. "The combination," she said, "is your birth date reversed." The vault was in Prague, a walk-in, hidden under an art gallery Miriam donated to years ago. Inside, tapes, documents, blackmail, bribes, dirt on everyone from senators to Silicon Valley billionaires, and in the center a thick red folder, labeled Sinclair. Inside there were contracts, not financial, biological, DNA reports, genetic profiles, timelines, photos. One file caught my eye. Subject: Alara Sinclair, February 2003 notes. Viable. Temperament optimal. Commence grooming. I dropped the folder. I wasn't just her daughter. I was her experiment. The rage was cold this time. No screaming, no crying, just a quiet vow. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about deletion. So I burned it. Every page, every tape, every whisper. Then I flew back to Montreal, sat in my window, watched the snow fall, and waited. 3 weeks later, I got a call. "This is the Geneva Clinic. We're calling about Miriam Sinclair. She passed this morning." I didn't ask how. I didn't care. She died alone. The way she deserved. I published the story 2 days later. How a banker faked her death and burned the empire that built her. It broke the internet. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was true. And truth, when wielded right, is the sharpest revenge. So here I am now, 35, alive, free, not healed, not whole, but awake. My name is Alara Sinclair, and I didn't just survive my family. I ended it.